Morning. Thank you, Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson, for welcoming me before your committee today. The issues within your jurisdiction are incredibly important to the state of Wyoming, our businesses, and our citizens, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss our priorities. Unfortunately, I come with an issue of great concern for multiple sectors of the Wyoming economy. This is the poor status quo of Western rail service, which is deteriorating even further. The reality is that Wyoming no longer has reliable rail service. One agenda item on this hearing's notice of meetings is addressing the supply chain and energy crises. The Wyoming situation, unfortunately, fits perfectly within this category. We have two rail companies that provide freight rail service to Wyoming. Together, their trains service our coal mines in the Powder River Basin, trona mines in the Southwest, Bentonite operations across the state, as well as agricultural producers and more. Nearly 20% of the nation's electricity comes from coal, and Wyoming is the top coal producer in the country, producing 40% of the nation's coal. Without Wyoming coal, the lights literally do not come on. Yet the Powder River Basin, where a large percentage of our coal is produced, witnessed severe disruptions to reliable rail service. In 2022, estimates from the Wyoming Mining Association show that the state of Wyoming lost roughly $100 million in revenue, with about 50 million tons of coal not being shipped from our mines because train service slowed, and in some instances, the trains did not show at all. This is $100 million that was not available for our schools, our budget reserve account, or for other state expenditures in Wyoming. And this doesn't count the losses to the federal treasury, as much of this coal is federally owned. While early 2023 train numbers have been better, they are still not completely restored, and there is no end in sight. We must be able to ensure stable and consistent train service in Wyoming. One large coal company in Wyoming saw the variance of their shipments from the second quarter of last year through the first quarter of 2023 down over 7 million tons from what was expected and nominated to its customers. Another saw its quarterly average shipments drop by millions as well, and yet another witnessed shipments decreasing by millions. During one particular cold snap, the mines were expecting 18 trains a day, and the number of trains dropped to just one. Other mines had days during the same period where no trains arrived at all. Now, severe winters in Wyoming are nothing new, but a lack of train service is. These are the nation's top coal producers, with both eastern and western operations. Many of these companies report that they have been able to reach a resolution for the reduced service issues related to their eastern operations, but have found little to no relief in their western operations, including in Wyoming. Another major concern for our coal producers is that up until recently, the Surface Transportation Board's Rail Energy Transportation Advisory Committee, which is supposed to have 3 coal producers, had none, essentially silencing this critically important voice. Another sector seeing reduced service is our industrial minerals. Soda ash is Wyoming's top international export, yet our producers are reporting that their rail service is the worst it has ever been. If we cannot deliver soda ash to customers, they will turn to our synthetic soda ash competitor, which is China. Such a development would be disastrous for Wyoming and the country. This is not from just the mining industry. Wheat and barley growers in our state have come to me not just to discuss the farm bill, but rail issues. In the Bighorn Basin, some ag producers rely more on rail to move their crops than they do trucks. Agricultural inputs have also been jeopardized. Fertilizer prices have already skyrocketed and hurt our farmers in my state and across the country. Yet in 2022, rail providers began metering traffic in a manner further threatening reliable access to these agricultural resources. What I have just laid out before the committee this morning can be seen on the graph behind me. Since 2004, U.S. Class I rail volumes have remained stagnant or declined, while its profits have increased exponentially. Rail issues come and go from the national news based on events happening around the country. Unfortunately, this is a constant burden for Wyoming and one aspect of the railroad issue that is not often covered in the media. I am concerned because access to reliable rail has all but disappeared in my state. My concern is heightened by the fact that there seems to be solutions in the East with a worsening situation in the West, a geographic area that may not be well known to the entirety of the country, but many of whom, whether they know it or not, rely on my state for their energy and food needs. With that being said, I thank the committee for welcoming me into the room today to discuss this ever-growing issue for my state, and I also want to thank Mr. Nels for leading this subcommittee overseeing rail. I have the great pleasure of serving with him on the Judiciary Committee and look forward to working with all of you on this incredibly important issue. Thank you.